Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fanatic Breakdown Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Higgins, with all the latest NFL and NBA news. Today, I will be covering NFL Week 3. I'm so sorry for the late release, but in my area, it appeared we were going to be affected by Hurricane Ian more than we actually were. We are very, very fortunate, but make sure to say a quick prayer for everyone that was affected. And with that, let's hop in to NFL Week 3. All right, I got a Thursday night game up first on the schedule. That was Steelers versus Browns, and the Browns took it quite easily against a struggling Steelers squad, 29-17. For the Steelers, I think though Mike Tomlin said he's going to roll with Mitch Trubisky, at this point I would have already benched him. He has not played very well. Through just 207 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Najee Harris finally had a decent game, 15 carries, 56 yards, 1 touchdown. That's almost 4 yards a carry, not quite though. Trubisky did get in the end zone on the ground though, 7 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Deontay Johnson, 8 catches, 84 yards. Freiermuth had 2 for 41. That's 20 yards a catch. That's pretty solid. Other than that, nothing spectacular. Although George Pickens had 3 catches, 39 yards. One of the best catches I've ever seen. I saw they were comparing it to the Odell catch, actually. It's very impressive stuff. Defense, Alex Highsmith had 1.5 sacks, and the guy with the other half sack was Larry Ogunjobi. But other than that, nothing special for their squad. Moving on to the Browns, Jacoby Brissett actually has played the game manager role very, very well. 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. They're utilizing their rushing game a lot, which personally I would do too if you had 2 of the best running backs in the league on the same team. Chubb had 23 carries, 113 yards, 1 touchdown, 5 yards a carry, or almost 5 yards a carry. Kareem Hunt had 12 for 47, almost 4 yards a carry. And Amari Cooper was great. He did end up dropping a first down at one point, which I was very, very surprised about. But 7 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown. David Njoku was amazing. 9 catches, 89 yards, and 1 touchdown. Very surprising from him. Then the next guy was Kareem Hunt, 3 catches, 14 yards, which was a little bit worse than the passing game than what he usually is. But other than that, the defense did almost nothing. Jalen Phillips had 1 sack. Other than that, nothing special. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game. Now, Bills-Dolphins, and this game came down to the wire. Bills, for Josh Allen, had 400 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then he was actually their leading rusher, too. 8 carries, 47 yards. And then Zach Moss behind him, 4 carries, 46 yards. It doesn't seem like any of their running backs have been crazy in the rushing game, so they really need to figure that out by the end of the year. But in the receiving game, it was actually running back Devin Singletary that led the team. 9 catches, 78 yards, 1 touchdown. Behind him, Isaiah McKenzie was 7 for 76 and a touchdown. And then Stephon Diggs, who, while not getting it in the end zone, I think we undermined his greatness way too much. He was still really good, 7 catches, 74 yards. And then James Cook. So we kind of fall off there with 4 for 37 for him. And then on defense for them, a half sack for Hamlin, and then Greg Rousseau had 1.5, making that 2 sacks in all. And then moving on to the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa had 186 yards, 1 touchdown. He did come out of the game at one point, which I would like to talk about a little bit more later. And then Teddy Bridgewater came in, went 0 for 2. Chase Edmonds had 6 carries, 21 yards, 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns on 6 carries is actually quite remarkable. And then Raheem Mostert actually got more carries than him, but only had 11 yards on 8 carries, which is about 1.5 yards a carry, which is not great. Then Jalen Waddle was the leading receiver, 4 catches, 102 yards. And then Tyreek Hill is the next guy, which doesn't come as a surprise, but you will be surprised at these numbers. 2 catches and 33 yards. He was not great, but they didn't have to throw to him. They only ran, I think the number was 39 offensive plays in all of the game. The Bills had the ball a lot and still ended up losing. I don't remember if I told you the score at the beginning of this or not, but the score at final was 21-19. The defense for them, Jerome Baker had half a sack, and then Javon Holland had 1.5. Obviously, they matched the Bills with 2 sacks in all. But I think it was just so devastating how they lost this game, how the Bills lost this game, 21-19. Isaiah McKenzie failed to get out of bounds. It was kind of his own fault, though, because he tried to fight for extra yards. And then they ended up not having enough time to get another playoff. But I forgot who, the Bills' offensive coordinator. There's a video online of him freaking out up there, and I probably would have, too, if you're wide receiver. I don't want to be too harsh here, but that play was kind of incompetent on his part. but he should have gotten out of bounds. But something else I'd love to talk about, the Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa, he came out of the game. They were saying it was a back and foot injury, and if you so he hit his head, and people were like, "Oh, that's probably a concussion." Went back, they cleared him from concussion protocol. They said, "Oh, nope, you're fine. Go back. You can go back in the game if you'd like." He did, and then on this Thursday night, which is last night for me, there was a very, very awful play. He got hit. On one play, he got up fine, bounced right back up, and then the next play, he got hit again, and he was on the ground for a very, very long time. He seized up. I think the exact term for it is called fencing position. And he got seized up, his arm seized up, and it was awful to watch. He ended up being taken to a hospital. He did fly back with the rest of the Dolphins last night. At this point, I'd say he probably has a concussion. Yes, and everyone, I think, yeah, he has a concussion. At the end of the day, yes, he has a concussion. I don't know if he's in concussion protocol as of yet. I haven't really looked at an update for that yet. But he was, given the fact he's back, I don't expect him to play within the next 1 or 2 weeks. Because they're saying it usually takes at least 10 days for a concussion to wear off and the effects to not be noticeable. But definitely devastating, and I mean, I don't want to talk about this Thursday night game very much, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next game. 21-19, Dolphins take it over the Bills. All right, now I got Bengals versus Jets. I bet you all already know who won this game just by staring at it. Obviously, you probably already know the game scores anyway because I'm coming out with this so late. I'm very sorry for that, as I'll say it again. But Bengals took it over the Jets, 27-12. Jets just never got anything going. With an amazing performance the week before by Joe Flacco, he just could not find the same spark he did last week. He actually did not play very good. But I'm on the Bengals side of the ball right now. I'll tell you their stats. Joe Burrow finally had a good game. 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. On the ground, Joe Mixon was awful. 9 carries, 47 yards for Samaje Perine, but Mixon had 12 for 24. That's literally 2 yards a carry. And then Joe Burrow had 5 rushes for 0 yards. I just thought that was kind of funny. Tyler Boyd, 4 receptions, 105 yards, 1 touchdown. So he was the guy in this offense to finally get it done. I think the Bengals offense is just so unpredictable. You never know who's going to show out because they have Tyler Boyd, D. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Hayden Hurst, and then on the ground, Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine. Even Joe Mixon can rush if he really wants to sometimes. But T. Higgins, 5 for 93. Jamar Chase, 6 for 29, but he did get in the end zone once, 1 touchdown. Joe Mixon had 3 for 14. And the next guy is actually Samaje Perine, 2 catches, 14 yards, and a touchdown. On defense, Logan Wilson had 1 interception, and then Jesse Bates had 1 interception. On the sack side of that, 2.5 sacks for Trey Hendrickson, and then B.J. Hill had half a sack, and then Sample had 1. On the Jets side of the ball, moving over, Joe Flacco, 285 yards, 2 interceptions. Not a great showing, although he did throw the ball 52 times, which is very surprising for Joe Flacco. I mean, I think you would probably lean more on Michael Carter and Breece Hall in this situation, but they definitely did not. Speaking of the rushing game, Michael Carter had 11 for 39, and then Breece Hall was actually really good on the carries he got, 8 for 39, which doesn't sound that great, but he averaged about 5 yards a carry, so that's really good. I would have personally given him the ball a lot more, but clearly they saw something that I didn't. Tyler Conklin actually was their leading receiver, 8 for 84. Garrett Wilson had 6 for 60. He's been really good through his first 3 weeks. And then Breece Hall actually ended up being their third receiver, 6 for 53. So he's proving useful in the rushing attack as well as the passing game. Corey Davis, 2 for 27. Elijah Moore, 4 for 49. Very solid game all around. Although C.J. Uzomah, 1 catch for 5 yards. He hasn't really made a splash with his time on the Jets. Well, being the Bengals' number 1 tight end last year, a team that made it to the Super Bowl, but I digress. On defense, C.J. Mosley had tons of tackles, 11 in all. Actually, no. That is 12, including assisted and solo tackles. One sack for Quinnen Williams, one for Sheldon Rankins. Other than that, nothing spectacular. No interceptions. Joe Burrow played a very clean game. Bengals take it 27-12. All right, now we got Raiders Titans. The Titans took it barely over the 0-3 now Raiders, 24-22. For the Raiders, Derek Carr played an okay-looking game. It wasn't as good looking like if you watched the game, in which I did. 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. And I'd like to point it out, it's not on the stat sheet, but Darren Waller dropped 3 touchdowns. I have Darren Waller in fantasy. I'm benching him this week, and something tells me, you guys can come back to this episode, it's going to blow up in my face. Something tells me he's going to have 20, 30 freaking points this week because I bench him. But I digress. Mac Hollins actually threw a pass for 4 yards. A guy who actually had a really, really good receiving game in the absence of Hunter Renfrow, and I'll get more information to you in just 1 second. The rushing attack was actually pretty solid for the Raiders. 13 carries from Josh Jacobs for 66 yards, over 5 yards a carry. Brandon Bolden, 3 carries for 17 yards, which this is kind of hard to gauge how many he got here, mostly because he only got 3 carries, but also around 6 yards a carry. So the rushing game seems to be working. And then Devontae Adams had 1 for -4, but that's not great. Mac Hollins, as I was just saying a little while ago, in the absence of Hunter Renfrow, had 8 catches, 158 yards, and 1 touchdown. He was crazy. And then the guy right behind him, Foster Moreau, 3 for 44. And then Devontae Adams, relatively underwhelming game for his caliber of receiver. 5 catches, 36 yards, 1 touchdown. And then Josh Jacobs through the air was also very good. 5 catches, 31 yards. And then now we got my boy Darren Waller. 3 catches, 22 yards. Kind of let me down. Although I still won in that league, so all the other guys picked up the slack for me. Appreciate you guys. On defense, Max Crosby ended up with a sack. Duron Harmon picked off a pass, which was actually a pretty good interception if you watched the game. Ryan Tannehill, 264 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Derrick Henry finally had a good game, 20 carries, 85 yards, 1 touchdown, which still doesn't seem that great, but given the fact no running back has been good this year. So that is like one of the best games we've had this year from a running back so far. And then Ryan Tannehill actually rushed for a touchdown as well, 4 carries, 2 yards, 1 touchdown. Robert Woods was their leading receiver, 4 for 85. Derrick Henry had 5 for 58 through the air. He was also useful. Nick Westbrook-Ikene had 3 for 40. Dontrell Hilliard, 1 for 30. Jeff Swaim, 3 for 19 and a touchdown. Austin Hooper had just 2 for 19. And then Treylon Burks, another disappointing game for the young rookie, 1 for 13. And then on defense, Kevin Byard picked one off. I'm pretty sure, yes, this was actually one of the drop touchdowns by Darren Waller that got tipped by Waller and then picked off by Byard in the end zone. Not great. But other than that, nothing special happened in this game. Titans take it, 24-22. Now on the schedule, I got Saints-Panthers, and the Panthers ended up, surprisingly, I was surprised about it, beat the Saints 22-14. Mayfield, once again, was nothing special. Threw under 50% again, 170 yards, 1 touchdown. But Christian McCaffrey finally got the job done. 25 carries, 108 yards, just above 4 yards a carry. Pretty good. Chuba Hubbard, 3 for 25. And then through the air, Laviska Shenault was their best receiver with 2 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. 2 catches. And that's actually their leading receiver. She actually ties with 3 other guys as their leader in receptions. The next guy we got is Shea Smith, 2 for 22. And then Robbie Anderson only had 1 for 14. DJ Moore only had 1 for 2. Christian McCaffrey, 2 for 7. Ian Thomas, 2 for 13. It's just, they're looking so, out of sync together. It's just bad. Jeremy Chin ended up with a sack. And then Derek Brown ended up with an interception of all people. Derek Brown had an interception, the big defensive tackle. And then on the Saints side, moving over, Jameis Winston had another awful game. And I think that's the only reason the Panthers won. They got so freaking lucky that Jameis Winston had another one of his multiple interception games. 353 yards, which is very good yards, don't get me wrong, but sometimes his decision-making is a little lackluster. 1 touchdown and then 2 interceptions. And then Alvin Kamara, another relatively bad game for him. 15 carries, 61 yards. And he's yet to make a difference in the passing attack, which is what he's known for. He's known for being a dual threat, which he's yet to do. Just 2 catches, 12 yards on the day. But going back to rushing, Mark Ingram had 5 rushes for 18 yards and 1 touchdown. Through the air, Chris Olave has finally arrived. 9 catches for 147 yards. And then Traquan Smith ended up with 4 for 105. And then Michael Thomas was okay. 5 for 49. If you started him in fantasy, I'd be okay with that. 9.9 points. Right? That's pretty good. And then it goes to Jarvis Landry, who had 2 catches, 22 yards. And then that goes right back to Kamara, in which I already talked about. And then Cam Jordan ended up with a sack, which that's cool, I guess. Demario Davis had a sack. And then JT Gray and Granderson both ended with half a sack. So Panthers surprisingly beat the Saints. All right, now moving on to the next game. Ravens-Patriots, and I bet we all already know the outcome of this game. At least I know I do. Ravens beat the crap out of the Pats, 37-26. Lamar Jackson continues to be amazing. I'm hoping not this week because one of the guys, a guy I'm playing against in fantasy, is starting Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson ended on the day with 218 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, rushed for 107 yards and a touchdown. Other than that, the rushing attack was nothing special. Justice Hill had 6 for 60. And then J.K. Dobbins was finally back. He had 7 for 23, so he's still showing his rust. Mark Andrews continues to be amazing. 8 for 89 and 2 touchdowns. I'm talking about receptions now, by the way. Rashad Bateman, 2 for 59. Devin Duvernay, 2 for 25 and a touchdown. J.K. Dobbins had 2 for 17. And then Pat Ricard had 1 for 12. And then the only other guy that's worth mentioning right now, Josh Oliver had 2 for 8 and 1 touchdown. Josh Bynes ended with an interception. Marlon Humphrey ended with an interception. Pat Queen had a sack. Madubuike had a sack. Brandon Copeland had a sack. Then Marcus Peters also had an interception. So that's pretty solid. Not only solid offensive effort, but the defense is showing that they also want to prove it for their offense. Moving on to the Patriots side of the ball, Mac Jones was awful. 321 yards, 3 interceptions. Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris, and Mac Jones all got a touchdown on the ground. And then through the air, Devontae Parker had 5 catches for 156 yards. He was pretty good. Awful the week before with 0 catches, but this week he finally got his chance. Kendrick Bourne had 4 for 58. Nelson Aguilar had 2 for 41. Ramondre Stevenson, 4 for 28. And then Jonnu Smith, 4 for 25. Hunter Henry has not been great this year, just 1 catch for 8 on the day. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Jonathan Jones had an interception, and that's going to be the only interception on the day. In the pass rush department, Dietrich Wise actually had 3 sacks. And then Matt Judon had 1, and then that's it. So the Ravens shellacked the Patriots 37-26. All right, now this game, I was actually rooting for the Lions. It was Lions-Vikings. The Lions had I think it was a 10-point lead, but they had a lead. They could have done it, but they just couldn't keep it going. Jared Goff was okay, 277 yards, 1 touchdown to 1 interception. On the rush, Jamal Williams, 20 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's been great. DeAndre Swift was not good, but he also ended up leaving the game. He had just 7 carries for 31 yards. Craig Reynolds also got the ball a little bit on the ground, 6 carries, 13 yards. Josh Reynolds, 6 for 96. I'm talking about through the air now. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 6 for 73. He also ended up leaving the game. DJ Chark, 3 for 46. And then TJ Hawkinson, who is one of the better tight ends in the league, has not done much this year, as well as I was talking about Hunter Henry just a little while ago. He also has had lackluster season. 3 for 18 and a touchdown, although he did get in the end zone, which is pretty solid. On defense, Alex Anzalone had a sack. I almost accidentally said baloney, but that's all they did on defense. For the Vikings, Kirk Cousins had 260 yards and 2 touchdowns. After completely being awful, I think it was Monday night before that. He was awful. Yeah, it was Monday night because there was 2 games. Dalvin Cook had 17 for 96, 1 touchdown. He ended up also leaving the game with an injury. Alexander Madison, who's also a pretty capable backup, 7 carries for 28 in 1 touchdown. Yeah. KJ Osborne ended up being the leading receiver for the Vikings, and at least, even though Justin Jefferson had a bad game, I still would have thought that maybe Adam Thielen would have been the leading receiver. But no, it's KJ Osborne, 5 for 73 and 1 touchdown. Adam Thielen, 6 for 61 and 1 touchdown. Irv Smith, 2 for 32. Ellefson, 2 for 24. And then, Justin Jefferson, as I was saying, he had a bad game, 3 for 14. Don't stress it too much, though. He should be back on track. He's just been shadowed a little bit by good corners. And then on defense, Metellus had an interception. And other than that, nothing much happened on defense. So neither of these teams playing great defense. But Vikings take it over the Lions 28-24. All right, I'm going to try to make the last 9 games as fast as I possibly can. So I'm just going to go over the top statistic guy in every category, and I will not be touching on defensive stats anymore. Eagles, for Jalen Hurts continues to be amazing. 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. Oh, I never announced the game. Gosh dang it. Eagles, Washington. Washington got the crap beat out of them, 24-8. Taking the L. And then in the rushing category for them, Miles Sanders, 15 for 46. And that's just about 3 yards a carry. Through the air, I will touch on 2 guys right here because they were freaking amazing. Devonta Smith had 8 for 169 yards and 1 touchdown. Then A.J. Brown, also really, really good. 5 for 85 and 1 touchdown. Moving on to Washington's side, Carson Wentz was not good. I played a guy in fantasy that started Carson Wentz. I bet he regretted that one. 211 yards for Carson Wentz. That's it. I'm not going to say anything else about Carson Wentz. That's it. And then Antonio Gibson, who was on the rushing attack, had 12 for 38 and 1 touchdown. And then through the air, their best receiver was Terry McLaurin, to nobody's surprise. 6 catches for 102 yards. And as I said, Eagles took that game 24-8. And this game is mega surprising to me. Colts ended up beating the Chiefs 20-17. For the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes was not anything great. 262 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He had a normal person game for once in his freaking career. On the rushing attack, Patrick Mahomes was actually their leading rusher. That says a lot about how they need to improve in the rushing attack. Patrick Mahomes had 4 for 26 on the ground. And through the air, it was Juju that ended up being the best, 5 for 89. And then Kelsey right behind him, 4 for 58 and a touchdown. On the Colts side of things, Matt Ryan was he ended up with 2s in his statistic category the whole way through. 222 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then on the rushing attack, Jonathan Taylor continues to be awful. Well, this isn't that bad, but, for Jonathan Taylor standards, this is pretty bad. 21 carries, 71 yards. That's under 3.5 yards a carry. And then Michael Pittman was their leading receiver, also to nobody's surprise. He's their best receiver. 8 for 72. And, it really does surprise me. The Colts are 1-1-1. You know what? I officially believe that the Jaguars are better than the Chiefs. Because the Colts beat the Chiefs, the team that lost to the Jaguars 24-0. Bang. Jaguars to the Super Bowl this year. Yeah, I totally believe that one. Let's go Jags. Yes. This next game, the battle of probably the two worst teams in the NFL this year. Texans, Bears. For the Texans, Davis Mills was pretty garbage, actually. 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Dameon Pierce actually started to find his footing. 20 carries for 80 yards, 1 touchdown. And then, who is this? Okay. So the leading receiver for them was actually Chris Moore, who I actually just had to look up who that was. 3 catches for 63 yards. Not great. And then for the Bears, the team that took the game by 3, 23-20, Fields was awful again. Threw the ball just 17 times, hit just 8 of those. 106 yards, 2 interceptions. But on the ground, he got bailed out by a backup running back in Khalil Herbert. 20 carries for 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. Because David Montgomery ended up leaving the game, but it's very clear that not David Montgomery, he's the guy who left the game, that Khalil Herbert can be a very, very good replacement. And then the leading receiver was Cole Kmet with 2 catches for 40 yards. Yeah, not great. But, I mean, I think the only people that cared about this game are Texans and Bears fans, of who there are probably 3 of in existence. So, Bears take it 23-20. All right, now Jags Chargers. Jaguars beat the Chargers 38-10. And by looking, or just the score itself, you'd probably think that Justin Herbert did not play. Yes, he did. He was just awful. But before I move to the Herbert side of things, the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence had probably his best game of his young career. 262 yards and 3 touchdowns. And yes, he threw 3 touchdowns in week 1 of last year, but he also threw 3 interceptions. James Robinson had 17 carries for 100 yards and 1 touchdown, proving why he should still be the lead back. Everybody was expecting that Travis Etienne would just take over immediately, and it's very clear that is not the case. Although Etienne did get 13 carries, they are splitting carries. It's a running back committee for sure, and he got 45 yards. Receiving, it was actually Zay Jones that led the team in receiving, 10 catches, 85 yards, 1 touchdown. He was good. And then right behind him, I would like to mention how good Christian Kirk is doing. 6 catches, 72 yards, 1 touchdown. He's on pace for over 1,000 yards this season. I think he's going to hit that very, very easily. And he's, like, as I said, I think I've said this the past 2 weeks as well, but he's proving why he deserves that money. So, very, very good game. And then moving on to the Charger side of things, Justin Herbert, 297 yards, almost 300 yards, which is good. But 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And it was very clear that he wasn't 100% healthy, because I feel that if he was 100% healthy, he would have made this game a lot closer. Not saying that he could still beat out a 38 points, but I'm saying that he would make it a lot closer than just 10 points. Their best running back was Sony Michel for some reason. 5 carries, 22 yards. Austin Eckler did not rush the ball, which I have zero clue as to why. Rush the ball. He had 4 carries for 5 yards, which I understand the rushing attack was not working. But who cares? It's Austin Eckler, so he had a tough start. Not to say he can't turn it around. All the great running backs do. He only got the ball 4 times in the game. Yeah. And then their leading receiver, while Mike Williams had a bad game with just 1 catch, and Keenan Allen was still out, so it turned out to be Joshua Palmer with 6 catches, 99 yards. Yeah, go Jags. They actually might be better than the Chiefs this year. 38-10 final score. Now we got Rams Cardinals, another quite underwhelming game. I think a lot of the games that everyone thought were going to be really good this year have turned out to be very, very low scoring. Rams, Matt Stafford, 249 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Rushing, Cam Akers, 12 for 61 and a touchdown. I'm sorry, I'm going super fast because I'm already at almost the 30-minute mark, and I don't want it to be another hour-long session, so I'm trying to go as fast as I possibly can. Cooper Kupp had 1 rush for 20 yards and a touchdown, so he didn't score through the air, but, he got it on the rushing game, which is not something you see every day with Cooper Kupp. Ben Skoranek was actually their leading receiver. It's a crazy week for receivers. 4 catches, 66 yards. On the Cardinals side of things, Kyler Murray, 314 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Both quarterbacks neither threw a pick, neither threw a touchdown. James Conner, leading running back for them, 13 for 39, which is meh, I guess. And then Marquise Brown had 14 for 140, the newest wide receiver addition. And yeah, Rams take it 20-12. I mean, really nothing special about this game. This is a game I thought was going to be way higher scoring, and it just turned out not to be. All right, now we have America's Game of the Week, which turns out to be America's Disappointment of the Week. Green Bay Packers, Buccaneers. Packers took this game 14-12. Turns out Tom Brady can't complete a 2-point conversion. That's just peachy. You know, old Tommy Boy can't get it done without old Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, can he? Aaron Rodgers had 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rushing 12 for 36 on the ground for Aaron Jones. Wide receivers, that was actually Romeo Doubs, one of the rookies. Had 8 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown. I mean, good for him. In the absence of Christian Watson, as well as Sammy Watkins, who's going to be out for multiple games. So yeah, pretty good game for him. Buccaneers, Tom Brady, he's okay. He was below average and way below Tom Brady's standards. 271 yards, 1 touchdown. Leonard Fournette continues to be pretty garbage, actually. 12 carries for 35 yards, under 3 yards a carry. Russell Gage was the Bucs' leading receiver. 12 catches to 87 yards, 1 touchdown. 12 catches. The next guy has 5 catches, in which is Cameron Brate. So just kind of disappointing for them. I think these guys can't wait till at least Julio Jones is back. The third receiver would end up coming back being their first receiver. That's pretty crazy, but 14-12, Packers take the dub. All right, now we got Falcons, Seahawks. Falcons take the W against two below average. It's 2 below average teams. They're 2 of the worst teams in the league, actually. So it actually turned out to be a pretty entertaining game from 2 bad teams. 27-23, Falcons take the dub over Seattle. Marcus Mariota had 229 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was pretty good, actually. Cordell Patterson was their leading rusher with 17 carries, 141 yards, 1 touchdown. I will say Mariota had 2 total touchdowns. He did rush for 1. And then receiving-wise, the best player for the Falcons was Kyle Pitts for the first time in a while. He was actually my disappointing player of the week last week. And he finally had a decent game. 5 catches for 87 yards. I still don't think he's hit his ceiling. At least he's getting the ball now, though. That's for sure a very, very good thing. Geno Smith had 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rushing for them, Rashad Penny had 14 carries for 66 yards. Actually, 5 yards a carry. Pretty solid, actually. Tyler Lockett was their leading receiver. 9 catches for 76 yards. Then right behind him, DK Metcalf with 5 for 64 and a touchdown. So, pretty solid game. And I'll let you in on a little secret. You guys can keep guessing on who it is. But my unexpectedly good player of the week is actually a Falcon this week. So they swapped from having the worst, my disappointing player of the week to having my unexpectedly good player of the week. So good for them. 27-23, Falcons take the W. All right, now we got Broncos 49ers, a game that was highly disappointing. 11-10, Broncos take the game over the Niners. There are 2 highlighted points I'd like to talk about here. One, that the Broncos are the first team to punt over 10 times and still get a win. That's pretty good. Or at least the first team to do that in a very, very long time. And then the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo stepped out of the back of the end zone. And I think that's kind of hilarious. Go watch that play for yourself. It was kind of funny. He didn't even notice. He still threw it. But it's probably a good thing because on that play, it would have been intercepted and it would have been a pick 6. So it's probably a good thing he just gave them the 2 points. Although, they still lost, so it's not like that play really matters anyway. For the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo threw 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Should have been 2 interceptions. And then Jeff Wilson had 12 carries for 75 yards. Deebo Samuel was the leading receiver. He didn't really rush nearly as much as he did the first 2 weeks. In week 3, he had 5 catches, 73 yards. And then on the Broncos side, Russell Wilson continues to be kind of garbage, actually. He's out of my top 10 quarterbacks. He's probably, he might not even be 15 anymore, honestly. 184 yards. He's just not utilizing his amazing receivers. Javonte Williams had 15 carries for 58 yards. And then Melvin Gordon had 12 for 26 and a touchdown. So they're using both of their running backs almost equally. And then their best receiver was Cortland Sutton, actually, 8 for 97. So I think highly underwhelming game. I'm sorry if you had to watch this Sunday night game like I did. 11-10, Broncos take the underwhelming win. All right, now we got Cowboys-Giants, and it's clear that the Cowboys hit a gold rush with Cooper Rush. Aren't I just hilarious? 215 yards, 1 touchdown, but those stats aren't remarkable, but he led them to a W, 23-16 over the Giants. Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott have clearly been picking up on the slack. Tony Pollard had 13 carries for 105 yards. Elliott had 15 for 73 and a touchdown. Receiving, C.D. Lamb had 8 for 87, 1 touchdown, but if his hands were like at all as good as what I originally thought they were, they would have won by more, because he dropped a wide open would have been touchdown. And then for the Giants, I feel so bad for Daniel Jones because he has no protection. But he had 196 yards, 1 interception. Saquon Barkley was good, 14 for 81 and 1 touchdown. I see everybody talking about how they're back, or Saquon's back. But I'm not ready to say that. Although Daniel Jones was amazing rushing the ball, 9 for 79, averaged almost 9 yards a carry. And then Sterling Shepard had 5 for 49, and he's out for the year. That really does stink. I think he said 20. I think they said 20 ACL. And then one guy I'd like to highlight that should have been getting the ball, or that should at least know how to catch, Kenny Golladay. Man's getting tons of money every year and had 0 catches on Monday night. Like that's not good. But underwhelming game for the Giants, 23-16. And as that seems, that is the last game, so I'm going to move on to my top player of the week, or unexpectedly good player of the week, and then my unexpectedly bad player of the week. All right, now I'm moving on to, as I said just a second ago, my unexpectedly good player of the week, which I picked. If you guessed, as I said, it was a Falcon. If you guessed Kyle Pitts, you were wrong. It's Cordero Patterson, 17 carries, 141 yards, 1 touchdown. He was really good, averaged almost 8.5 yards a carry on almost 20 yards, or almost 20 carries in a game, which is very, very good. So I don't really have to explain that here. And then my unexpectedly bad player of the week, let me pull this up real quick. I just want to look up at his actual stats. It's a Raider. A Raiders wide receiver. Davante Adams. Listen, 5 catches is not bad by any means, but he averaged just 7 yards a reception, which is not good. He should be getting the ball downfield. He's one of the best route runners in the league. He can outrun you. He'll outmuscle you for the ball, and he's just not getting the ball. Like, he had just 36 yards, and although he did get in the end zone, he scored every week, but still, I don't think that atones for just 5 catches on 36 yards. So I don't really have much else to say about this. Just really, really underwhelming. And they're 0-3, which also played a part in me picking him as the underwhelming player. I could have also gone with Darren Waller here. There's multiple Raiders I could have gone with, but I ended up with Davante Adams because last year he was known as the second or third best receiver in the league. So Davante Adams, unexpectedly bad player of the week. As sorry as I am to say that. All right, now that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, I'll be back next week for my next episode, which will be Week 4 recap. And I'll try my best to be on time. As you all know, I was not on time this week, and I'm once again so sorry for that. With that said, I'm your host, Chris Higgins, and this has been Fanatic Breakdown.